What I would like to convince you is that by quantitative color imaging, by false color, you may transform a difficult to read TAC, computer tomography, in something very easy to be read even by the patient. And the patient may follow what is happening in his own muscle in the follow-up of the training. We are talking about not this guy, which is the standard paralysis patient with thoracic high-level damage. We are talking when the lesion is near the conus cauda, and therefore there is a chance for some of these patients to be completely denervated in the leg muscle because they have heavy damage to the conus cauda. Therefore, this person have atrophic muscle, much severe than paraplegics, which have reflex activity, sometimes too much. They are spastic. Spasticity maintains some trophism. If there is really zero gravity in the space or zero activity for complete denervation, the muscle really disappears. But luckily, in big animals, they take years to disappear. And therefore, there is time during the first, the second, the third years to start a recovery of the denervated muscle at the level that people, the youngest, the lightest, the more compliant, may even stand on their stimulated denervated muscle. Why? How? I prefer to start from histology. Forget this, go to this panel. This is a mass value opposite taken from Helmut from a lower motoneuron lesion, a really denervated leg muscle, 1 year during the first year of post-denervation. It is just atrophic. Up to 2 years, 1 year and a half. Then, at 2 years, the number of fibers decreased. They became so small at 4 years post-denervation that you need sometimes electron microscopy to recognize that the red small spots are surviving muscle fibers, empty from contractile proteins. 10 years after muscle denervation, there is no more muscle fibers. If you have some fibers, they are the residual poor reinnervation that may also occur. This is the same patient biopsied after 2 additional years from denervation. Therefore, it is a 3 years denervated patient. But during this last 2 years, he was compliant to the protocol that Helmut, Hoffer, and Meyer developed in Vienna. These are not normal muscle, but are big fibers. Are they reinnervated or recovered by the training that they did 5 times per week during the last 2 years? They are denervated because the amount of current that you need to stimulate a completely denervated muscle is 100 times higher than the current that you need to stimulate motor nerves. Even after 2 years, these muscles continue to need 50 times, 100 times more current than innervated muscle fibers. And therefore, we have the evidence that they are denervated, but recovered muscle. The same is true starting from 2 years. At 4 years, many of the fiber are as big as the normal. From 4 years to 6 years, during the last 2 years, they recovered from this poor, severe atrophy to something that is a bad muscle, but it is muscle. When you are 6 years or longer, very few fibers are recovered. This means Helmut is not here. This means that those are the few that are innervated. Because all the others disappeared, they are there. Anyhow, we go. We skip this. Here there are the correlation between the size of the muscle, the size of the fiber, and the strength that you may obtain by stimulation of the leg, of the muscle. We go to the next. Imaging. Pulse color computer tomography, something that in Vienna and in Iceland together they developed. Under the suggestion of Hugo. Use a trick that cardiologists did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, to identify an infarct. What do? They do this trick. They distinguish what is muscle from what is not muscle. The color are taken from the trivial idea to apply histological color. What is red is muscle tissue, almost normal appearance muscle tissue, but 1 year after spinal cord lesion, the amount of connective tissue in green is slightly more than expected. Of course, 2 years after denervation, fibers decrease, connective tissue remain, and quindi is present in a larger percentage. 4 years after lesion, again, less muscle, less red, more green and yellow. 6 years after denervation, there are some residual muscle tissue, but almost all is non-muscle tissue. What are those panels? The same patient, 1 year of denervation, 3 years of denervation, but during those years, he was compliant to the training. This is a normal appearing muscle. He is a normal muscle because he contracts, it performs tetanic contraction, strong enough to maintain right standing position. He ought to be a normal muscle. The same is true 2 years plus 2 years, at 4 years. The same is true 4 years plus 2, 6 years. Of course, starting from a very bad situation, you recover something. Here, Helmut is not here. This is very, very reddish. It is the same region which was with some region red 6 years after the denervation. That there are 3 motor units. And therefore, these 3 motor units respond better than all the others. But this muscle need denervation related to electrical stimulation. This muscle continue to need the high intensive current needed to make the denervated muscle contract. Where is the trick? The trick is that Helmut had the idea. Engineers were obliged to develop trivial stimulators because this is 100-year knowledge. This is 100-year knowledge. Siemens, we have in Padova an electrical stimulator by Siemens, which is 60 or 80 years old. There is the stimulation of the innervated muscle feature. If you have in your department a stimulator old enough, you will find that there are those, because these are trivial solutions. If you are completely denervated, anesthetized by denervation, and therefore you may inject all the heavy amount of current which is needed. How much? This is derived from the pilot stimulator, is a commercial stimulator, therefore there is a AC approved device. There is the device, there are not the patients. But even if they are only 50 in Europe, they deserve to have this information. They have the right to that some doctors know this possibility, which is a lost effort. They worked 7-8 years to collect the data that I am presenting. And this is the trick. At the beginning, you need high currents, long currents. These are 120, 150, 300 millisecond each pulse. Remember that the nerve responds with 1 millisecond or less at a current intensity much less. Therefore, if the muscle responds only to this current, it is denervated. When by this, let me say, shaking, Helmut say, start with shaking stimulation, single twitches at 1 or 2 hertz. This calcium transient induce in the genome, in the nuclei, that are losing the ability to continue to synthesize contractile proteins, sarcoplasmic reticulum, blah, 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 blah. They recover the ability even when the fiber, the surviving fibers, is empty from contractile protein. This mechanism of light stimulation, but continuous stimulation, reset the nuclei, and the program starts again. And you may shorten from 120 to 40 milliseconds the pulse length, and therefore you may discharge a train that provides tetanic stimulation. I ask 10 of you to do this trivial experiment. From tomorrow, every day, you do 10 times this exercise, just shaking, and on the left leg, you do tetanic contraction with some weight, even better, 10 times here, 10 times here. Which leg became bigger? Of course, the tetanic stimulated muscle. And at the end, this patient may do not fatigue for 10 milliseconds, and therefore they can stand or more. No, sorry, this is minutes. They do not fatigue for 10 minutes, and therefore they may do gym standing for 10 minutes. This is almost near to voluntary exercise by doing one leg at once, under the contraction induced by electrical stimulation. There are no doubt that this works. Please try to find new patients that are in need, because this progressive long-term stimulation of the muscle are done by surface stimulation, which means that main time you stimulate also the skin. And the skin is an important side of complication for those patients. They have much better skin due to the exercise that they are doing. In my opinion, only for this reason, you have the moral obligation to find the person that may be helped by these tricks. I'm sorry to be aggressive, but I really believe that this is mandatory. If you know, now you know. You can't say, I don't know. I was not informed because in any book except the last book from Carraro and Masiero that appear in Springer, Nature Springer rehabilitation book, there is all this material. This is all published. It's published in good journal. Of course, there are millions of information, and therefore Hugo and Helmut lost his enthusiasm, but Hugo is determined to find someone that continue this field, because it is crazy that it is not spread around. Sorry, and thank you for your attention.